So I hope you found these two exercises helpful over the last two clips, and I do hope that you've come to learn something about yourself. Listen, if you have gained an insight or something like this, why not submit a post either inside of Ecology or inside Practice Makes Permanent, the Facebook group, and share what you're discovering about yourself with other people. Because I know from experience, sometimes when taking an online course like this, it can feel a little bit weird, right? You're growing in lots of insights, you might be learning lots about yourself, and you kind of think, oh my goodness, is there anyone else who's gaining these insights, or is it just me? So why not post a message inside of one of the groups, Ecology or Practice Makes Permanent, and you might be surprised to discover just how many other people are with you at this stage of your learning and development. My friend, I guarantee you will not be alone. So what I want to do here in this video, I want to now give you a demonstration of the best case scenario, what a CBT session can actually look like. Now, back when I started out, if I was working with people, I would generally, I think I first set myself up, making myself available to work with people who had anxiety, depression, various emotions. Now, what I found was that generally when I marketed myself and made myself available for working with people who had those conditions, right, what I attracted was a lot of people who were operating and functioning out of this victim mindset. People who were waiting or looking for someone who would change them, rather than actually being involved in the process of change in a collaborative way. All right. So instead, what I learned to do, quite earlier on, was make myself available as a CBT practitioner who would use various CBT-based tools and practices as a means by which to help people break through any barriers that they had in between where they're currently at in life and ultimately where they want to be, which made the helping process far more progressive by nature. This would generally allow me to really help my clients and those people that I worked with enter into and operate out of far more empowered states, right? Whilst also learning how to take greater responsibility for themselves and their own cognitive processes through the process, if that makes sense. So now you're familiar with the ABC model. Now this is pretty much our bread and butter. I think I've already mentioned this as cognitive behavioral therapists. Now we can expand upon this. I'm going to share with you in the sections that follow quite a number of tools and techniques and processes that will just simply aid us in really helping our clients to gain the insights that they need to gain into that which is actually true for them. Remember, more often than not, people will talk themselves out of playing the kind of game that they want to play in life because they end up believing the stories that they tell themselves inside of their minds. They end up sometimes subscribing to their own unhelpful beliefs, assumptions, catastrophic ways of thinking, and so on and so forth. And what I'm saying here is that none of us are where we want to be in life. A breakthrough session is just simply when we enable our clients or those people that we work with to break through from where they're at in terms of one way of thinking, looking at life, relating to people, to another, and help them realize that they're actually more able to get the consequence or the outcome or the result that they want to get than perhaps what they previously thought that they were. So a breakthrough session we would generally host for the purpose of leading our clients, all those people that we work with, into a greater degree of self-realization within themselves. All right, perhaps identifying a disruptive thought pattern or a cognitive distortion sometimes might be a pattern of a lifetime, all right, that might not have particularly helped them or served them in any way. Now, what we don't actually need to be able to carry out a personal breakthrough session is a problem, because sometimes our clients will come to us and they might be able to talk to us or give reference to a certain problematic emotion that they're experiencing, but sometimes the client's not going to be having any problematic emotion whatsoever. They're just going to feel a little bit stuck. They're just going to feel a little bit disgruntled, kind of like they're not where they really want to be in life, all right? Which again is a very, very progressive place to be working with a client at, because they're somewhere, but they want to be somewhere else, which means that we then as CBT practitioners, we can just simply play a role in helping them to identify a pattern of thought or a cognitive distortion that might be standing in their way. So, what I want to do here is just give Karen a very, very broad area of life to explore. I'm going to ask Karen whether she is 100% happy and content with the quantity and the caliber of her current relationships.
No, that's an area of life that I feel there's room for vast improvement.
There's room for vast improvement. Now, Karen, just to reassure you here, first and foremost, before we get involved in the demonstration, there's a pretty good chance that most people at home are going to be nodding their heads, saying, yes, I also have room for vast improvement in the quantity and also in the caliber of my relationships. Yeah. All right, there's always room for improvement. Relationships is one of these areas of life where it's not like, I've never come across or known anyone who says, you know what, I just have way too many deep, meaningful, connected relationships in my life. I'm just too close with all of these people. Right? The quality of our lives is always going to be determined, or heavily impacted at least, by the caliber of our relationships. And I'm guessing that learning to relate with other people is kind of a lifetime process that we only ever get better at as we learn how to better relate to and with ourselves.
Yes. Yeah, I can relate.
True?
Yeah.
So none of us are there yet, all right? My friend, if you're sitting at home sighing that sigh of relief, saying, oh my goodness, I'm not the only one in the world whose relationships aren't where I want them to be. My friend, you're not. My relationships aren't where I would love them to be either. Hence the reason I remain grounded in this journey of personal growth and development. So Karen, I am just wondering if you could just identify some sort of goal that you could perhaps set in this area. Is there something that you want that you're not getting, something that you perhaps hoped you would have someday that you haven't yet got? What would be an ideal objective in this area? Let's keep the relationship goal-orientated and collaborative, because this is the nature of the CBT relationship.
So in terms of a goal, I think to increase the number of intimate relationships, like meaningful connections that I have in my life.
Okay, fantastic. So if you were to, say, increase the number of intimate, meaningful relationships you have in your life, what is this going to give you more of? What would be the consequence of this, the outcome?
Yeah. Connection. I really value connection.
If you get connection, what's this going to give you more of?
Fulfillment.
Fulfillment.
Yeah. Gives me opportunity to share and give back as well within that connection.
Okay. So can I just ask a question then? Does that therefore mean that where you're at today in terms of the quality and the quantity of the relationships you have, you're not as fulfilled as what you would like to be?
I'm not, no.
You're not as fulfilled as what you would like to be. So there's definitely room for improvement in this area of your life.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if we could use this session, this conversation, just to explore the actual reasons, or the reasons why your relationships aren't where you would ultimately like them to be.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Is that going to be useful?
Yeah, it will be. It's something I'd actually like to look at.
Okay, fantastic. So this is generally how I would start a conversation. It's about just agreeing upon a shared goal, a reason for us actually having the conversation. So Karen now has a goal. Now remember, with the ABCs, what we've done here is very, very subtly, we've identified an area in Karen's life where there's a void. There's just simply room for improvement. And because there's room for improvement today, I'm going to assume, and please correct me if I'm not being accurate here, that this has always been a room or an area in your life where there's always been room for improvement.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So the emotional consequence today, because of this void in your life, is you're not quite as fulfilled as what you would like to be.
Yeah. Although it felt slightly different in the past because I had more people around me, it felt different, although it wasn't. The meaningful connections that I'm talking about, there's a void there, and I don't feel fulfilled.
So in the past, you've had. Are you talking about your religious experience?
Yeah, or that time of life anyway, like family and people around about me who were there, and on acquaintances on many levels, but not deep connected relationships.
Okay, so you had. So back then, you were surrounded with people who were kind of like-minded.
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
Yeah, but you weren't so much unified with them.
No, and that was partly on me as well because I wasn't very aware of myself back then.
You weren't aware of yourself back then?
No. So
could you just literally unpack this? If we can just understand how it was you weren't aware of yourself back then, and then we'll perhaps maybe relate that to how aware of yourself you are today.
Sure, yeah.
And then we'll just see what's changed.
Yeah, so back then, now I know that I was completely consumed with keeping other people happy.
So back then, keeping people happy was really a priority for you.
Yeah, appeasing them.
Appeasing them. So what is it you must have believed then, back then?
I believed that I really needed their approval, that was like the most important thing. That, the thought of anybody being unhappy with me or feeling like I had let them down in some way was just the end of the world.
It's interesting. So let's relate this back to Mr. Albert Ellis's 14 destructive beliefs. So you must be liked by people. If not, this is not okay.
It's not okay, yeah.
So this is possibly the belief that you were operating out of.
Yeah. I can't make mistakes around other people.
And what would that mean if you did?
If I made mistakes, it's like the end of the world. Like I've got to be perfect,
You must be perfect.
The tall order, like.
It's a bit of a tall order, isn't it? Talk about putting pressure on oneself. So you were functioning out of this inferiority complex, but yet trying desperately to be Superman.
Yes, that's quite an accurate
Something
picture.
like that.
Yeah.
I wonder if anyone at home can relate. All right, and we're just keeping things real here, people. Okay, cool. So let's talk about this belief then, and let's just see if there's other areas of your life that this belief might have outworked itself, because beliefs have this tendency of impacting us not just in one area of life, but in all areas of life. So you were trying desperately to be liked and approved of, but yet you were feeling inferior, but trying to be superior, Superman.
Yeah, feeling inferior and almost like desperate to maintain the facade that I was Superman.
Desperate to maintain the facade.
Yeah.
Now, what was it you were desperately trying to achieve? So you try to achieve the facade, but for what purpose?
Like I wanted other people to see that I had it all together.
You had it all together?
Yeah, and that.
Did you?
I was good, and no, I didn't have it all together. I've never had it all together.
So you wanted people to think you had it all together when you didn't really have it all together?
No.
So just seeing what your main goal then was back then, if we could name it and shame it, was your goal to connect meaningfully with people, or was it to deceive people?
It was to deceive them.
So your goal back then was to deceive people.
Yeah.
That's interesting, isn't it? When we take ownership of that which is true for us, I don't think you'll be alone in the world. When I think there's a lot of people out there, isn't there, who put on a facade and make themselves out to be someone that they actually know deep down inside that they aren't, desperate in the attempts to connect with other people. So let's just talk about then, let's just explore from a slightly different perspective, what it would have been back then that would have led you to identify someone that you'd really want to connect with. Did you connect anyone you really wanted to identify anyone you really wanted to connect with back then?
Yeah, I mean there were people back then that I was more close with than others, and that it would have been nice if the relationship had been even closer and more meaningful, more connected.
But it wasn't quite as connected as what you wanted it to be.
No, it was based on quite a superficial level, but I wasn't even really aware of that at the time.
Okay, so you weren't really aware of how superficial the relationships were.
Yeah, or how it could have been deeper. It's only really in the last few years that I've learned that there's more possible, you know.
So as you've grown in awareness of yourself,
Yeah.
You've become more aware of exactly what's available in terms of
Being able to
connection,
relate to people.
relating.
Yeah.
And this is probably quite important, isn't it? Because we don't just relate to people on an intimate level, but we relate to people on a social level, on a professional level, online. This is how we relate to people online these days.
Yeah.
Life's all about relationships, isn't it?
It totally is, yeah. Yeah.
So I'm taking even back then, you had those connections that were of a certain depth. Was there any other areas in your life where you had relationships that were deeper? Was there any area of your life where your relationships were really giving you what you wanted?
Not back then, no.
Not back then.
No. Not until you came along and then we started connecting on a deeper level.
So we started talking about different things, didn't we?
Yeah.
So you started identifying different perspectives, different ways of looking at yourself and different ways of looking at life.
Yeah, and what it actually means to be real in a relationship and not try and have a facade. But like, I remember you came into our relationship like warts and all. You know, if there was something going on for you, I would know about it. Whereas I would always try and keep my emotions at bay or never put that on someone. But that's not life. That's not healthy. You know?
I guess in a relationship, there's probably not really too much point in voicing what we believe or voicing what we think or voicing what our opinions are or how we feel if we're not willing to reveal who we actually are.
No. It's really false.
It's quite false.
Yeah.
Quite false and superficial and empty. And this is kind of where your relationships were at, just a little bit.
Yeah. All of them, you know, not I can't think of one that was really different.
Okay. And apart from the relationship with me, how would you say your relationships have changed since then? How, in terms of how you connect with people? What's changed?
Since then, I've moved away from a lot of those relationships that I had at that time, for different reasons, and not belonging to that church group that I used to be part of. And
so back then you had your kind of groupthink thing going on, and
yeah,
kind of like a situational relationship.
It was quite situational. A lot of my relationships were back then. So those people aren't really in my life like they were back then. And I've found that I haven't really, although there's some potentials in some sort of early days relationships, I haven't really developed many deep connected relationships yet that I want to.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. What's stopping you? That's the killer question, by the way. Take note of that
Good
one.
question.
What's stopping you? That's
Yeah.
the response that you want.
Yeah.
What's stopping you? Because it's only going to be a thought pattern. Just going to be a thought pattern or a cognitive distortion. It took us about 15 minutes to get there.
Yeah.
What's stopping you?
What's stopping me? So if I'm imagining one person who I know I sort of could connect with, but I haven't really made that effort yet to deepen the connection.
Give the person a name, even if it's not the real name for obviously confidentiality's sake.
Okay, let's say it's Lucy.
It's Lucy, right.
Okay.
So you want to really connect with Lucy. Mm-hmm. You see there's an opportunity there to connect with Lucy.
Yeah.
But you haven't initiated yet, or?
Not really, no.
Not really. So you haven't fully invested yet?
No.
What is it you're waiting for?
That's another good question. As part of me is slightly intimidated.
Intimidated? What is it you've assumed about Lucy?
That she's above me in some way, older, more mature.
Lucy's above you, older, more mature.
Yeah. part of me thinks, oh, I'm not sure that she wants to, so I haven't made the effort, which is pretty stupid.
So you're not sure if she wants to connect with you. So maybe Lucy has an absolute abundance of really healthy, grounded, mature, grounded, connection-based relationships. Has she got too many, do you think?
No, I don't think she probably does.
She doesn't?
No.
You think she's like most other people in the world?
It seems that it's quite a common thing, isn't it?
Yeah, okay. So let's look at what's actually stopped you then. What's actually prevented you from making this effort? Because it's great having conversations like this, but unless a conversation like this results in, you actually taking action, then there's no point in having conversations like this.
No, absolutely, yeah.
There's no point in changing. There's no such thing as changing, is there? There's only either changed or not changed. So are you changing? Have you changed or have you not yet changed?
I guess in this area I have not yet changed.
You've not yet changed, okay. So what's, how has the way in which you relate to people today changed in comparison to how you're related to those people back then?
Yeah.
I'm talking about how you relate to other people.
Yeah.
Not about how you relate to yourself, because we know that's changed.
Yeah.
That has changed. But that yet hasn't, it doesn't seem that that's...
No, like it's kind of two-sided, because on one hand, when I'm with people, I feel far more able to connect and relate now.
So when you're with people, you feel far better able to connect, but as long as that's situational or circumstantial.
It kind of is if it's situational.
Kind of like the same as what it was in your old group.
Yeah, although back then I didn't feel so confident within myself or able to relate quite as well.
Okay.
But outside of that those situational relationships back then, this now requires me to initiate and drive and make effort. So although I feel I can connect on a better level, it's kind of just getting past that first barrier.
That first barrier, I mean, if you were to initiate or take that first step, I mean, what's the worst case scenario? I mean, what could potentially happen?
They say no. They say no.
And what would that mean?
It actually would be okay. No?
Would it? Are you sure?
Yeah, I mean... Yeah, today it would be okay. Like, the old me might have really taken offence at that, but...
The old you would have done?
Yeah.
But the new you knows better?
Yeah, like there's plenty of people in the world. And
there's plenty of people. There's like 7.8 billion people in the world. But we've got to start somewhere, don't we?
Yeah.
So what do you think? What do you think you would say you're responding to more than? What would you say your default mode is? Because you want better, more meaningful connections with people. It seems like you've got your eyes set on someone who's a potential candidate, but you haven't yet taken that first step. And this is going to be because either your priority is connecting with someone else, or it's perhaps defending yourself or protecting yourself from something that you think might happen. I don't know. It's good to explore these things, isn't it?
It totally is. Yeah. I mean, you're right. Like I'll often.
What's right? Sorry.
That I'll like, for example, I might avoid initiating or asking this person to meet or whatever because and put something else in front of it, like work or busyness, something else that's also important, but
common.
Yeah, I'll put something else in its place.
To avoid the risk
of being rejected, even though I know that it would be okay if I were.
Now, you've been rejected. Do you think that's a likely case scenario, or is that potentially just a worst case scenario?
It's worst case scenario.
It's worst case scenario. What would you say best case scenario is?
That this person's also kind of hungry for good relationships.
This person is kind of wanting to connect with other people meaningfully in the same way that you do.
Yeah.
What do you think the likelihood of that is?
I reckon it's pretty likely.
Pretty
given
likely.
that most people are in the same boat. Yeah.
Okay. So let's come back to the question then. What's stopping you from taking that first step? What's stopping you from actually taking action and making a shift or a change in this area of your life? Because it doesn't seem to me like there's anything stopping you apart from some sort of expectation. It seems like there's an expectation that's stopping you, not actually a real thing.
Yeah. Yeah, there is. I think it's old habits die hard. It's like that expectation that I should perform or be Superman for people.
What else could you be instead?
And just be real, just be myself.
Just be yourself.
Just be honest.
What about Katy Perry? Could you be Katy Perry?
No.
You couldn't be Katy Perry. Why not?
I don't know what Katy Perry's like. I wouldn't know how to start being Katy Perry.
You've never been Katy Perry, do you? But you know how to be yourself. You know how to be honest. You know how to just tell the truth. And do you know how to be interested in people?
Yes.
Do you know how to listen to people?
Yes.
So do you know how to pick up a phone?
Yep.
Do you know how to dial a phone?
Yes.
So you know how to pick up a phone, you know how to dial a phone, you know how to communicate with people, you know how to listen, you know how to hear, do you know how to ask questions?
Yep. Yeah.
Do you know how to not talk about yourself all the time?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Do you know how to not make everything about you? Personalize everything?
Yes. Yeah.
Do you know how to respond more to what you actually want than catastrophic thinking? Do you know how to respond to that more?
I'm getting better at that.
How? What's your process? Because it seems that this is possibly the sticking point for you. It seems that this is actually standing in the way of you getting more of what you actually want in your relationships. It seems that it's a cognitive distortion. It's catastrophic worst case scenario thinking. It seems is stopping you from getting what you want, which is just a couple of thoughts, isn't it, or an expectation?
Yeah.
So how is it that we overcome this? How do we overcome this? Because it's just a thought, and this thought is triggering an emotional consequence, and this emotional consequence is bringing about inaction into your life that's actually holding you back and stopping you from getting more of what you want.
No, you're totally right.
The ABC has just come into play.
Yes.
Hasn't it?
Yes, it has, yeah.
Do you see how we've done that? Are you impressed? It's quite smooth, wasn't it? So what's the next step?
Yeah.
What's the next step? How reliable is your thinking?
Not reliable. No.
It's not reliable.
No, it's not reliable. I know that, like, when I take little steps or take steps outside of what's comfortable, I start to feel more comfortable taking risks.
So when you step outside the comfort zone, start taking steps, you become more comfortable and confident taking more steps outside the comfort zone.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So with this specific person, there's nothing other than just bite the bullet and do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if Lucy says no, then you're not going to be any worse off, it seems to me.
No, I actually won't be.
But you might have gained a new friend.
Yeah.
So you've got everything to lose. You've got everything to gain, but nothing to lose.
Nothing to lose, yeah.
Everything to gain, but nothing to lose. Is there anything that you might lose, if anything at all, if you were to say no? Anything whatsoever? What cost might this, or could this, worst case scenario, come at the cost of?
I guess there's potential there for a four-way relationship between yourself and myself and her partner. And
okay, so that would be good.
And that would be a really good thing. So if she said no, then that would come at the cost of the potential of that.
But I guess you don't know, do you?
I don't know.
And I guess that you not doing anything is already coming at the cost of that.
It is, Yeah.
So you're already bringing that.
I'm the barrier to that.
You're the barrier to that. So you are. Okay, that's interesting. Well, I've got a proposal. All right. How engaging have you found this conversation? Have you been able to relate to any of it? We want to keep this stuff really real and really relatable. So how about we end this conversation here? I just wanted to demonstrate a conversation on how the A, B, C can come into play, into context, in a conversation with a client or another human being. All right. Now, we haven't really used any processes yet, no questioning techniques or anything like this, but we have many of them that we're going to be presenting you with shortly. So how about we remember this, all right? Take note of this scenario, this situation, and throughout the remainder of the course, we'll come back and we'll revisit it from multiple different perspectives throughout the rest of the training, so that upon the completion of the training, you're ready to go and take action if you haven't already done so before the course wraps up.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah, okay.
Should we do that? How about before the course wraps up, you set a goal, and that's what I'm talking about here is before we finish all the filming, all right, which might be another week or so. You might not appreciate that, but it'll take us about another week or so to film the remainder of this course. So you take that action step between now and the end of next week so that we can discuss how you get on and what you learn through the process about yourself.
Okay.
So we've now got a goal. Shall we hold her to account? Fantastic. Listen, hope you found this conversation useful and insightful. It's good that we're talking about relationships. Why? Because as cognitive behavioural therapists, we're in the people business. We're working with people here. The way in which we relate to people is going to determine the depth of connection and trust that's developed. It's ultimately going to determine how open people will go on to be with us. All right, so this is the demonstration, a bit of a breakthrough session, kind of, but it's just about looking at Karen, something that she wants, why she's not got what she wants, and what's actually stopping her. We're going to attack this problem from a few different angles until we realise that there's nothing actually stopping Karen from getting more of what she wants. It's just her and a couple of cognitive distortions. My friend, it'll never be any different from this, I guarantee you. Doesn't matter which angle you tackle a CBT-based relationship from. So listen, hope you found this demonstration useful. Hope you've been able to relate, and we'll look forward to seeing you again in the next clip.